Eden Koz here with Just Be, and we are about to take a spiritual boom. We are at an unprecedented time in human history where we are transitioning from 3D to 5D within the great spiritual awakening. This video and audio podcast is the place for you to find your truth beyond politics, your sovereignty, your voice. Let's kick up your vibration now. By the way, each episode ends with the Just Be practice to do just that. And as we begin the show, just to know a little bit more about me, I'm a soul realignment specialist, meditation master, and dimensional healer. Learn more, and there's merch also at EdenJustBe.com. Let's get this party started. Then this is where we smile it up. And you can do it. Yeah, I love that. Super good. Okay, let's do a couple more. Oh, you feel good? Okay. I love that. Okay, I feel that's good.
That is going to be the best thumbnail.
All right. Not that I'm going to get serious now, but I'm going to collect everything. Okay. Eden Just Be Spiritual Boom in association with the Grassroots Warriors Network. Welcome, Victoria in North Vancouver, Canada. How you be today?
Oh, I'm being so good today. I feel like today's conversation is going to be super valuable. And it is summer in Vancouver. It's not raining, so I'm happy to be here.
Okay, we are happy to have you here. So I always like to say what potentially we're going to talk about, and who knows where we're going to go. We are potentially going to talk about the Great Merge, Mother Earth, channeling galactics, and I think Tay is the energy that is most prominent within you now. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and it's really interesting. My daughter is Tatum, but her nickname is Tay Tay. Tay, so really beautiful. Okay, we're going to talk about the transgender agenda. I really want to talk about this from a perspective because you are in a transgender relationship, and this is awake versus woke. So we're going to get into that if that's still cool with you today. And I'm going to go ahead and preface this that we are all connected to these sexualities, parallel lives. I was a serial killer, for example, which there can be so much that you can explore. Plus, I've had people on the show who've had lives where they were plants and animals, and I'm going to bring this one up because it's really cool. Patrice in episode 107, delicious. And you and I have talked one-on-one before, and there are many things that you will talk about today that potentially the transgender community will not like.
Yeah.
Okay, I love that, and I really thought a lot about our show. And by the time our show is produced, so we record 2 weeks ahead of time, I will be in my divine relationship for 6 months. So this is a great awakening, new earth relationship, Victoria. I don't know if I talked to you about that. So I've done 2 shows about that specifically. There may be another one coming in the works because this stuff, it is hard. It is beautiful. It is wonderful. And I'm doing this for you. And completely doing it for me as well. So yeah, it's going brilliantly good. Okay, shall I go into your bio now? Is it time?
Let's smash it. Let's do it.
Smash it. All right. So, Victoria Pippo is more than just a spiritual teacher. She's a living embodiment of energy mastery. From child actor to addiction survivor, queer woman to soul strategist, Victoria has walked through it all. Now, a psychic gatekeeper and disruptor of the spiritual norm. I love that. I consider myself that as well. She teaches high-level entrepreneurs, healers, and public figures to protect their energy and reclaim their divine power. Hey, let me ask you, Victoria, how old are you?
30.
Okay. One of my intentions is, and it's happening right now, to have younger people on the show. So I'm really glad because from my perspective, there are so many folks in their 50s, 60s, and 70s that know what's going on in the world. And a lot of folks your age have been programmed. It's really hard to break outside of the matrix. Would you agree in terms of what you're saying? I know we're jumping ahead for a second, but yeah, give me some thoughts on that.
Totally. And I feel like as a millennial as well, I think a lot of millennials are really lost because we're kind of caught between what feels like weird timelines. We grew up with technology, but we're not so consumed by it that we didn't go through like such weird phases. Like I feel like we were the last iteration of like emo, goth, weirdo, awkward, and now there's like Kim Kardashians. It's like I didn't get the Kim Kardashian era when I was a teenager. I want to be Britney Spears, be thin as a freaking toothpick, and I want, to play with Polly Pockets and become Paris Hilton. Like, I didn't really have, the like, and now I'm 15 and I'm yelling at my mom about Botox. I was 15 telling my mom I want Abercrombie and Fitch and to go make out at the movie theater.
Okay.
I was like the last, if you're a millennial and you're listening, like we're kind of like the last hurrah of like the awkward phase. And I think a lot of millennials I know are like really struggling to figure out what their place is because we feel awkward in the world in terms of
Okay.
our evolution.
Good point. Because phones, I'm guessing phones have started coming out, but they're not as prevalent as they are now. And social media consuming so much of younger people's lives. I can't even imagine what it's like. All right, so let's continue. We'll get back to that. So, founder of the world's leading psychic development school. Let me take a clear my throat for a second. The Sovereign Healer. Victoria's teachings go beyond surface level spirituality. She helps her clients develop true discernment, dismantle new age illusions, and connect with their soul in a real, raw way. Okay, I'm like this too. No fluff, no fakery. Amen. Victoria's work isn't just about spiritual mastery, it's about survival, embodiment, and truth. She is not here to entertain you people. Go ahead and know that as we start the show. She is here to wake you up. All right. What do you think about that? What do you think about your bio? I ask this sometimes.
Oh, I love my bio. I love receiving my bio and being like, damn, yeah, that is me. It's good for
Yeah.
receiving messages. It feels really good to be received by my own bio, but also to have a moment of recognition of how far I've truly come and to be able to put it into something as short as a little character bio
Yeah.
feels, I don't know, I enjoy it. I feel really honored to like reflect back myself and be able to receive it.
Okay, good for you. All right, my first question is typically, well, 99% of the time, I desire to know about your spiritual awakening and then your awakening, your great awakening. I know you had six parental figures from age 0 to 7. Holy smokes, that food and water and some of the necessities weren't there. Both parents married 3 times. All right, so what was that like? And knowing that attributed to who you are now, please tell us.
Yeah, so all of that is true. And it's interesting because I didn't even realize how those patterns were contributing in some of my behaviors until my awakening. Because actually a lot of that timeline of my life was actually like cut off completely. Like I don't remember a lot of it.
Yeah.
Is interesting. These are a lot of memories that were either replayed back to me by my eldest sister or different inquiring questions I had from my mother. I knew I had had a lot of parental figures, but I didn't know the depth of how intense they were. For example, after my mother and father got separated while I was born and conceived, my mother remarried and my father remarried, but my parents did not know that the people that they married used to be married themselves.
They didn't know that?
No.
Okay.
So that's already giving like really strong embellishment. And then both of those relationships separated. And then my dad was in another long-term relationship, was going to marry her. And then my mother got remarried to now what is my stepfather. But there was a lot of who's my parent? Who's the figure of my life that I'm supposed to trust? Who actually is here to guide me? And so in a lot of my kind of young adult life and my younger childhood life was a lot of trying to get validation from the world outside of me
Hmm.
and also simultaneously becoming very hyper independent to try to cope with the lack of control I had over my childhood. And so that resulted in a lot of my patterns. As you mentioned, I was a child performer, which was such a gift. I feel like if I didn't have performance, I felt like my childhood would have been completely different, but also the potential for me to have my awakening would have been completely different because
Yeah.
I feel like the arts was the right environment to put somebody who had a lot of trauma, because I could experience catharsis through different characters and I could explore the different edges of myself and my patterns through performance. And so I actually found a lot of beautiful escapism in art, if you will.
Yeah.
And uh, while I was a starving artist, I definitely found a lot of healing through art. And so I was a performer for 20 years, but I also had a dream underneath that to go on Broadway. And so that hyper independence came in of like, I'm going to be the one that's going to get out of where I came from and show myself I can do it. And at this time, I didn't even really realize how the relational dynamics I had in my family created relational dynamics around me, whether that be try to gain control over other people, try to get validation from other people, try to get approval from other people. If I didn't get first place in a singing competition, I felt like I was a nobody. Like everything was about first or you're nothing, chosen or you're nothing. It was always extreme. And so that led to some of my addictive patterns that I spoke about here in not only in the hyper independence trying to obtain a goal, but through different substances through college. It was like if it was not Adderall, it was relationships trying to get approval from men. If it was not trying to get approval from men, it was constantly trying to like be the best in my class. And if I wasn't best in my class, it was like I was addicted to feeling love and validation from the world. And
What
so
can I ask you? What was your Adderall experience? Because that is such a that is so out there and so used and so yeah. What was it like for you?
So I was introduced to Adderall when I was at a performing arts school for high school kids. It was called Interlochen Arts Academy, and we would sneak into each other's cabins, and because we couldn't drink and we couldn't, be teenagers, we were all ADHD kids apparently, and so we would all just pass Adderall around and snort Adderall. That was how we were high school kids, exploring ourselves and our edges.
So how did kids get it?
Well, a
Because I
lot
know
of
it's not easy.
Well, a lot of the kids actually did have ADHD, and so they were
Okay.
actually prescribed it, and then it was like,
Okay.
I got something like, you want some of this? And the next thing you know, we're like going to their cabins and they've got like Adderall on lock, and people were just snorting it, taking it, enjoying it. And so that was actually my first introduction into Adderall, and it felt like the driver of my life could go at like 2, 3x speed because the driver of my life was trying to get on Broadway, trying to be the best, trying to be chosen. And with Adderall, I could condense the time but go double as fast. And so, as you can imagine, it became something that I started to find myself needing to perform better, to be clear of mind, to operate at what I thought was my upper tier. And so I actually asked my mom about ADHD and I told her that I thought I had it. And is it true? Yeah, definitely. There are some attention deficits here. However, I don't necessarily subscribe to that narrative now. I just think I really needed meditation and like help. But I did go and get Adderall myself prescribed. I was prescribed Adderall, 30 milligrams of Adderall. And by the end of my Adderall experience, I was taking 230 milligrams of Adderall a day. A day.
Okay. Is that a survivable amount?
No, that is like I probably should have went to get help because I wasn't
Okay.
sleeping for days. My
Oh
prescribed dose
my
was
God.
30 milligrams. So
Okay.
you imagine prescription dose is 30 milligrams. I was taking 230 milligrams of long-lasting Adderall every day.
Jeez.
So multiple days without sleeping. I learned an entire theory book in like 3 days. I learned how to play piano, played consistently, didn't know how to play piano at all, and got into like super high level piano class when I got into my conservatory because I learned how to play Bach on the piano. Like it was just like the things that I was doing was the motivator of wanting to belong, wanting to be good enough, wanting to be accepted. And Adderall was that thing that allowed me to maximize my quality in the shortest quantity of time. And that was consistent until I told my mom I hadn't slept in a few days. I saw a commercial about if you need help, you should check out this rehabilitation center. I told my mom I woke her up at 4 in the morning and I was like, Mom, I think I need help. I think I need some help with Adderall. I think it's an addiction. And she said, we can't afford that. You're just gonna have to quit cold turkey and basically figure it out.
Okay, so wait, how long had you been doing this? Like relied on it?
So I had well, it was on and off for a while. So in high school around like senior year, and then going into I did a lap year, so that would be my like grade 13. And
Okay.
then I was prescribed before I got into college, so that would have been about like went to about like a year, 2 year, about 3 years, I would say
Okay.
consistently. And then when I got to college and I was going through some hardship, I mean, college, you could buy Adderall from the grocery store. Like you could just get it anywhere, right? So then, I had fallen off taking it, and then naturally I was kind of guided back to it, and I found a certain dealer in the area, and like he would just deliver me Adderall or Xanax or whatever.
Okay, thank you. So when you went to your mom and basically said, I needs help, and she said, nope, you got to do it on your own. Well, how did you respond to that? What did you do?
Christmas, I was visiting family around that time. My mom had told me, well, you got to basically, like, if you took all your pills, like, you can't do anything about it because I would take, like, my 30 days of pills, I would take them in like a week and then have to, like, be resourceful and, like, figure out ways to, like, get my,
Resourceful.
my high and, like, ask people to, like, get me my fix, basically.
Yeah.
And I had withdrawals, unbelievable withdrawals because I had to quit cold turkey because I finished all my pills in record time. And my mom was like, "Can't help you with that situation."
Okay, so
Mhm.
what were your withdrawals like?
They were horrible. The amount of nasty that I became, the amount of sweats, the amount of nausea, the amount of discomfort I felt, it was horrible, and it lasted at least 3 to 5 days before I felt any resemblance of normalcy.
How'd you get through that?
I was young, so I felt like my body was like elastic, you know?
Okay.
It was kind of easier to bounce back because it was like, and then I'm going to school and college and I got accepted to a great school. Like there was something kind of else to
Okay.
throw myself into. And so I
Okay.
was on my way to college at that time, and there was a lot to kind of look forward to. And so during Christmas, I spent that entire time being a haggard witch. And then, those 3 to 5 days of trying to navigate the withdrawals. And then naturally, I started to feel a little bit more energy. I started to feel a little bit more, I don't know, bright, like
Mhm.
sustained by my own energy again. And then I went away to college.
Okay. Those are really hardcore symptoms to go through by yourself, and especially not knowing when they're going to end.
Totally.
I mean, did it feel during that period of time like, oh my God, when is this going to stop? Can I handle it? And I know you had other things to kind of look forward to, which is great because a lot of people don't have those things. How did you do? How did you do it? And then assuming this also helped you become so strong.
Yes, absolutely. And I think if you were to ask me how I actually went through it, I would be honest with you and share that it was the way that my family always got through things, which was
Okay.
figure it the fuck out, do it,
Mhm.
and get over it. Like that's kind of the way that I had learned from my parents to navigate things. It was
Mhm.
like bypass, deal with the problem, move on. And so there was no room to be like, like there was no contemplation involved in the scenario. There was no space for actual growing yourself as a person as a byproduct of the challenge. It was just simply pick yourself up, put on your big girl panties, and move on. And so those were some of the reflections I had had around me. And my family has struggled a lot with different addictive patterns as well. So it's not like, and then I was the only one who experienced addiction. My parents have had issues with whether it be smoking or drinking or painkillers or marijuana, like, substance abuse ran in my bloodline. My mom,
Mhm.
when she got remarried, she married a crack addict. So I was exposed to people utilizing drugs from a very young age.
Oh my
Right. So
gosh.
it's like it wasn't surprising that naturally I kind of fell into substance abuse,
Yeah.
but in the same breath, the way that I was told how to navigate it was the way that my family navigated it at the time, which was, well, that sucks. Life sucks. Go on.
Woo. Okay. Thanks for being honest about that because this is what the show is about too, and to present this to other people to let them know what you went through. Okay. I one podcast I watched with you too talked about you being a bully.
Yep.
Explain that for a second.
Oh man, if I could go back to my little inner girl, I would tell her that you didn't have to get control over people in order to feel like you were good enough. And I wish I had memory and recollection of those younger years of my life when my mom was in a really abusive relationship with her second husband and how he mistreated us. I have different memories, but I don't have the full picture. But I knew it was the kind of scenario where like my mom would pay somebody in crack to basically parole and patrol mine and my sister's bedroom because my mother's husband at the time was so abusive. So it was like that kind of situation that I grew up in. And obviously, feeling out of control, two things happen. Either I become completely fawn or I fight, really, because freeze in my family doesn't really happen. We are always kind of in this reactive state. And so for me, being reactionary and trying to kind of gain control from feeling out of control was my child in inner child's way of navigating what was my childhood and then trying to grow up like everybody else when I was not like everybody else. I grew up in a pretty wealthy neighborhood, a really kind of wealthy town. It was a farming town. So you were either like really rich or like dirt poor. And we
Okay.
just happened to be like dirt poor. And so you add in the fact that I want to belong. I don't feel like I belong. I grew up in a traumatic childhood environment of abuse and just confusion about love and receivership. And so I became a bully. I would make my friends bring me candy and put them in little bags, and I would like not play with them if they didn't like bring a full heap of candy. I was that like bratty, pretty but mean girl that you see in the freaking movies. That was me. And I was on a podcast and he was actually talking about how he was bullied. And I don't
Yeah.
know if he took it well, but my response was like, I also want to acknowledge like we should have compassion for the bullies.
That was the one I
And
saw.
he was kind of like, and it was just it
Yeah.
was one of those things where a bully has a reason for being a bully. It doesn't change the fact that the bully should never cause harm to somebody else,
Yeah.
but it comes from a harming household. And when we're young and we don't understand that, I had somebody who commented on one of my posts. I've been in my spiritual business for 6 years, and she was a high school friend, not friend. She was like acquaintance. She like hung out with my groups of friends, and
Yeah.
she said something like, you know, um, you were like such a cruel person. Like, you said this thing to me about how I was like, I don't know. We were like 15. Everybody was fat and ugly unless you were the cool kid. So it was like I kind of picked on her or something rather. This is like 15 years later, that she was still holding on to this.
Yeah.
And she was looking for some sort of apology from me. And I didn't know where to go because I was like, well, of course I'm sorry for that behavior. But in the same breath, like I can't imagine holding on to something for 15 years that we don't actually understand, and we don't have the full picture of. And so I wish in both aspects, it was like, I wish you would not hold on to that version of me because I've grown so much, but I also have compassion for the fact that that stuck with you. And I'm sorry that stuck with you for so
Mhm.
many years. So yeah, that was an interesting experience. And that was a comment from like a high school friend person, acquaintance, where I was a pretty brat who wanted to fit in.
That's great, actually. Do you feel like you healed from it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. I healed from the part of me that needed control, and I healed from the part of me that didn't know any better. I didn't have examples in my life of healthy leadership, healthy love, healthy connection, healthy relating, healthy relating. I had nobody to look to about healthy relationship. And so I'm proud of who I became as a byproduct of the odds that were stacked against me. And I can't apologize for what I did when I didn't know any better, but
Right.
I can take better action, and I'm proud of the actions that I've taken since then.
Mhm. Awesome. All right. So, how, with all of this that happened, how did you start breaking into the spiritual side? How were you to break free of that and to really start to see there's so much more? What did you have a situation that occurred, or what prompted that?
in college, like I had kind of shared, I stopped using Adderall for a
Yeah.
little bit, but then I kind of got back into it. Like around sophomore year, my sister had a really, really bad accident when we were on vacation together, and she suffered from a traumatic brain injury while we were partying on an island, basically. We'd had like a Palm Bay or two, and she fell off a golf cart and actually suffered from hemorrhaging of the brain. And I had no license. I was 19 years old, and I had to drive my sister to the Canadian border from Ohio to the Canadian border in Detroit without a license while my sister was bleeding out. And the neurologist, once we finally got her by the grace of God to the hospital, he pulled me aside and was like, your sister's the only reason, or you're the only reason that your sister's alive. And if you would have waited like 6 more hours to get her here, she would have completely bled out. And then I said to my mom, like, what do I do? Like, I have to go back to school in a week. I don't know if I can go back. And she was like, you're going to go back to school and you're going to finish your education.
Gosh, your mom. Okay. Is that what you
The
did?
story
What
fact,
happened?
I went back to school and no, I never saw a therapist. I never talked to anybody about my experience. I went back to school and went to a conservatory with rigorous training, multiple days a week of ballet, tap, modern jazz, musical theater, acting, singing, doesn't matter what it was. I basically went back into human life with all of this, the first real significant amount of trauma that I had remembered that had been inflicted upon me and my sister. My
Mhm.
sister's now lost two and a half of her senses. She's lost all her taste and all her smell from the accident. She will never work again a day in her life unless she chooses. And we were now in the process of like a massive lawsuit. And then both my parents lost their jobs
Wow.
all in the same time while my mom told me to go back to school.
Okay.
So I went back to school and naturally, of course, like I'm now smoking pot and skipping class and getting back into Adderall and doing some Xanax and dating people, but then kind of like dating other people while I'm dating those people to try to fill this part of me that never got looked at because no one in my family ever looked at their shit. Like that was never the way, as I've kind of shared here. And I had an amazing roommate, kindest, sweetest, amazing woman, one of my dearest, like friends in this lifetime. And her mother was like, I need to talk to you. And she said to me that, you know, she's asked me multiple times not to smoke at the house. And the neighbors have told on me.
Okay.
And she is a religious woman. She is, a woman of God. And at this time, God wasn't a word I used. Like none of those. Where was God in my story? Basically,
Yeah.
is the point. There was no God in my story. There was hell, and there was the fight for my life, and that was the truth of my reality. And she said, you're not going to be able to stay at our home if you don't kind of change some of your actions. And she was a psychologist, I believe. And she handed me this big book. It was like this thick. And she slid it over to me and said, I want you to read this. And it was a book on mental health. And this was like the first person in my life who'd ever shared anything with me about mental health, had ever shared anything with me about mindset, had ever shared anything with me about getting better, self-reflection.
Hmm.
And one of the first suggestions was meditation. And I thought, well, I mean, I had a relationship at the time, cheated on him. That wasn't my best choice. He was a really good guy, first guy I'd ever been with. I was sitting with that regret, that shame. He was an amazing person, probably could have been my husband in a completely different reality, if I wasn't who I was at the time,
Yeah.
abusing drugs and trying to figure out my life purpose while I was simultaneously processing grief through more addictive choices. I was like, well, I've got nothing to lose if I just meditate. So I started to welcome in 10 minutes of meditation a day. And things started to change slightly, but I started to notice. I'd feel like calm. That was weird. Never felt calm before. And then I would feel non-reactionary in the way that I typically would about life. and I wanted to repair some of the relationships that I had severed because of my own problems. And this was like the first time that I'd ever done any kind of self-reflection.
Hmm.
Otherwise, I was just trying to show myself I was capable of creating a better life for myself and for my family up until that point. And so I
Okay. And
graduated.
this was in your early 20s?
Yeah, so this is
Okay.
basically near ending my college career in 2017.
Okay.
And so graduated college with 17 agent offers to move to New York City to pursue acting.
Okay. And again, you're from Canada, but you went to school in Ohio in the States, which is where I am right now. What do you think about the States?
I actually, for an actor, I loved the States. For a
Okay.
musical theater actor, it felt to me like living in the States was like if somebody got their, I don't know, their doctorate. Like it felt like that was the thing. If you
Okay.
want to be on Broadway, you go to New York. Anything else than that is a failure.
Mm.
That's where my mind was. And
Okay.
so I got into New York and I had
Okay.
an agent and a manager, and I booked two jobs right out of the gate out of college. It was like, wow, I'm winning. Like my first professional gig. Like I was living in New York City on a 1 year visa and I booked two jobs. I'm like, oh, this is unheard of. People are like starving actors, and I booked. Like I actually got a good job too. I was working for Disney cruise ship and they were giving me an amazing job. I was like, I made it. Making I think it was like $1,200 US a week.
Okay.
And I had no money. So, but at this time, like the self-reflection was just like a little bit of meditation here and there.
Hmm.
There was no God in the conversation, and that was really as far as it had went. And so my spiritual awakening happened not in my first contract with Disney. That lasted about 9 months, and then I got off the cruise ship, but my visa had ended.
Okay.
So I had to move back to Canada. So that was kind of like a, oh, like I've just built up this career and now my visa doesn't exist. I have to go home. I have no choice.
Okay.
But that didn't lead me to my awakening, which I'm kind of surprised by because that was supposed to be the thing. Like living in New York, getting on Broadway, doing the thing, and then finish my Disney career, had no visa, had to go home. It was disappointing, but it didn't lead me to my awakening. So after that had happened, Disney didn't call me back right away.
Hmm.
And I was really upset about that. I was hoping that I'd go from like one to the next. I'm like, this is great. No, it took about 6 months for Disney to call me back. And I had to get a job. I had to get a job in Toronto and I worked at a gym. And there were a lot of really, you know, amazing people who are focused on personal development in the gym, being personal trainers, being some of the sales associates. And that was probably the first time I was around people who were actually focused on personal development. Other than that, I was around a bunch of traumatized liberal performers who were either gay or confused or straight or confused. It was like there was no personal development happening. There was escapism and disassociation in cute clothing. So in 5, 6, 7, 8 and Laducas. So this was the first time I was around people who were like, I meditate, I work out, I eat clean, I do want to go do this thing together and like work out with all these people. And so one of my friends recommended a tarot reader.
Okay.
Timeline, this is like 2018,
Okay.
2018 now, early 2019. And she's like, "Do you want to go see this tarot reader?" And I was like, "What the fuck is a tarot reader? Like, what's tarot?" She goes, "This healer, she's really good. She's right across the street from the gym I worked at." She goes, "Here's her card." And so I kept her card on hand. And now I'm also starting to learn a little bit more about personal development, such as like law of attraction. Like you create your reality. So now I'm
Hmm.
like dipping my toe into like introductory spirituality, but I haven't had my awakening yet. And I keep this card on hand for like 3 months. I'm like, I'm not gonna go see this. What a hoax. Like she's got this giant sign, glow up sign that says psychic on it, and it's on top of a pet store. You think I'm gonna go do that. And then one day I had an intuitive nudge to text her and say, "Hey, I'd like to come for a reading.
Let's go.
Let's do it." So I go up her stairs past the pet store on the lower level and I get to the top floor and this small lady is standing there, like so short, like couldn't be taller than like 5'1". And when I'm uncomfortable, I talk a lot. And so I am now rambling. My father, he wasn't really available in my life. Like he wasn't here a lot. And I just, we're starting to sit down. She's starting to like shuffle the tarot cards and I'm telling her all about my toxic father. And then she's like, "Will you let the cards talk?" It's like that. One of the first things she said to me. And I was like, okay, interesting. And
Okay.
so as she's shuffling and cards are coming out, I have no idea what's going to happen. And she goes, "It's so interesting that you've got all these things about your father that are coming up, but I don't see anything about your father on your spread."
Hmm.
She goes, "I see everything about your mother." And my mouth was like, what do you mean? My mom has been basically at this point, my mother has practically raised me. My father was kind of in and out of my life. He came on the weekends and gave me things my mother couldn't afford. So he was the cool dad until I got older and realized that he just wasn't really all that present.
Yeah.
And he just wasn't a good father figure that I needed at the time. And as I got older, I had realized that. And she's like, "Yeah, but there's entanglements with your mother. There's a lot more here with your mom." And it felt like the lights had went off for the first time in my life. And I was like, well, that makes so much sense because my mother had been the woman who told me get up and go to school.
Yeah.
She was the woman that was like, "You're going for this dream." Even though my body was falling apart, I didn't really want to do it. I was having addictive problems. Like I was vi my mother was living vicariously through me, and I deeply, deeply wanted to show my mother that I could create a better life for us. And that was outlaid in the cards for the first time I had ever had the kind of self-reflection that was, whoa, wow,
Hmm.
okay, fascinating. And so I left that and she was like, "There's definitely going to be a little bit of, healing work that we can do if you want." And I was like, "You're a scam." And now she's a scam because now she's offering me healing and I'm like, "Who is this lady?" And like I said, like I hadn't been exposed to any of this and I left with her reflections and what it would cost to work with her and, kind of what kind of work we were going to do, but there was a part of me that was called to it. And at the time, I didn't know it was my intuition. I didn't know my soul was like, "Hey," I was really jaded. I was hardened by the world.
Yeah.
I ended up doing a little bit of healing with her for a few months. And that led me to my awakening because around that time, I had heard back from Disney. I was going on another cruise ship contract. I was in a relationship that was healthier than the one in college. It was the first healthy partner I had had. I felt like this woman had helped me start to open up my heart a little bit.
Hmm.
I felt so, I was like, I've never felt this warmth and openness to the world. It was always like, I need control of life.
Yeah.
And I got on with my cast. Basically, you have to go to Florida to get ready before you board the ship. So you kind of take like a few days in Florida, go check out Disney, and then you go on the ship. I found out 9 p.m. before the day of embarkation onto the ship. So 9
Hmm.
p.m. it's late at night. I'm gathering all my things. I lost my passport on the plane and I couldn't get on the ship. And I had $30 to my name. And Disney said, "Good luck." My mother was like, "I'm broke."
Whoa.
Now I'm back in the States. I have no money at all.
Whoa.
And I have this healer that she said there's a little bit of deeper work to do. It's going to cost you more money. And I was like, "No, I feel great. I don't need you." So I had cut her off. I was like, "I'm on Disney now. I'm in this healthy relationship. Healer, I don't need you at all. See you later. Peace in the Middle East." Like I left. And then the passport happened. And for some reason, that coupled with how hard it was for me to get money from random people, to then being stranded in Florida, to then finally getting on the ship a week later, to feeling ostracized by my cast. Like they were giving me weird vibes. They made me feel like I was super behind. Like I felt this like self-judgment kind of being projected by some of their judgment. And
Hmm.
that changed things for me because I started to revert back to old patterns of looking for other people to validate me, trying to get control of situations. And it led me to being unfaithful to the partner that I had had basically immediately when I got on the cruise ship. I had a partner, him and I had been dating. He lived in Toronto. I got on the ship and I cheated on him within the first week. And so that coupled with all of the no money, feeling always like my back's up against the wall. I have to figure myself out. I'm in survival. I got on the ship, and that catalyzed my awakening.
Okay. So it catalyzed it. What'd you do from that point? How did you act on it?
Well, the boyfriend that I had had, I've never had a boyfriend who had done that, but he's like, mailed your luggage to your cousin and you're blocked from everything. Like I couldn't even explain I'm traumatized right now. Like I'm not in the space. That was the first time that had ever happened where it was just complete cut off. And
Hmm.
so I had no option but to face myself, right? And be like, it's not his fault. Like if I was cheated on too, I'd do the exact same thing. Like he owes me nothing. I was unfaithful in our relationship. So all the energy got faced back at me. And I had to go back to work and try to navigate being on this cruise ship feeling like I don't know that I belong here anymore because I feel weird about my cast. My cast feels weird about me. I feel like this isn't right. Something isn't right.
Hmm.
And around this time, this is when I started to go back into meditation.
Okay.
And so I started to meditate every day, consistently, constantly. My passport that they gave me was like a temporary passport.
Hmm.
So I had to get off on one of the ship days, fly out to go get the real passport in Miami, and then come back. And around that time, it's about 2 months into my ship contract, I had a realization that I needed to reach back out to that healer. And I told her, like, hey, I'm finally making money from my cruise ship, and I've paid off all the people who were generous enough to offer me something. And that work that you were talking about, I think I'm open to doing it.
Let's get back to it. Okay, then let me ask you, Victoria. Okay, so you had that spiritual awakening into more than what brought on, like for me, and I've talked about, like I started doing the spiritual work in my late 20s, and it wasn't until COVID hit that that was my awakening into, oh my gosh, we're in a matrix, and yeah, it was just another whole level. When did that hit for you?
For me, that happened about a few months into deep meditation on the cruise ship.
Ooh,
And I started to have psychic experiences that were
okay,
happening,
that's a lot to come all at once.
especially because I was completely alone in it, right? Like I
Yeah.
said, am I going to ask like my liberal gay friends who like are traumatized and confused? Like I think I just talked to my grandfather in my bedroom. Like that's what had happened. My dead grandfather came through in one of my in one of my meditations.
Wow.
I was meditating and I kept feeling this like breath of air on the left side of my body. And it's like, I don't know what that is. Like I don't know what that is. I didn't know anything about psychic gifts. This healer, she wasn't really communicative. She was just doing the work and I was feeling the shifts.
Mhm.
So I wasn't able to really like I didn't really ask her a lot of what was going on because I just thought it was air control in the cabin.
Oh my gosh.
And then one day in meditation, a voice came through and was like, I am your grandfather, I am your spirit guide, and I've been with you your whole life.
So bam, bam,
So
bam, bam.
now it's like, what is this reality?
Yeah.
What do you mean I just talked to a dead person on a cruise ship? Like, how did he get here? What do you mean he's been with me my whole life? And so I called my mother because I knew that it was my mother's father
Oh.
because my dad's father was still alive. And I said to her, did I ever tell you that I talked to grandpa? And she said, yeah, you would always walk around the house around 2, 3 years old and say, Grandpa's here, Grandpa's here.
Oh my gosh, right?
And then I said, well, did he ever like live on one side of the body? Like, did I ever like point to a certain side and say, there he is? She goes, yeah, you'd point to the left side of anybody who was standing and say, Grandpa's here. And that's the side of the body I felt the breath of air. So my skeptic got the confirmation, and now my
Okay,
I
so
got, yep.
go ahead.
Well, I got off the cruise ship a little bit after that
Okay.
experience happened on the day the world shut down for COVID.
Whoa.
The day, by the exact day.
Whoa. Okay. So what happened next?
Well, now I had unlimited Wi-Fi, unlimited psychics with glowing signs on social media, and a whole lot of information about psychic abilities, energy healing, talking to dead people,
Yeah.
all of that. And so I really immersed myself in the world of New Age spirituality. I was the Kool-Aid, didn't drink the Kool-Aid, I was the Kool-Aid. Anything you wanted, I did it. It was like learned astrology, all the New Age. Actually, I didn't get too deep into plant medicine. I'm glad I didn't get down into like that rabbit hole, but I partook in a lot of different channelings of different beings. Like I learned how to channel extraterrestrials and I was talking to them and these guided meditations would take me to motherships and I was so excited and you know, people in their mid 20s are getting drunk in the summer and like I'm channeling a blue feathered alien. Like it was like that was what I did during
Yeah.
COVID and my gifts just started to open. I started to see very clearly and work very clearly with different extraterrestrial life forms. And my grandfather and I were now speaking on a regular basis,
Yeah.
basically every day. And I was getting full information from him about my path, about why I was here, what I was here to do. And that led me to wanting to start my own business, pulling tarot cards.
Well, and it's so neat now how the energies are so explosive that people come into this awakening so much faster. Because for me, it was awakening to psychic abilities, talking with dead people, realizing that I had, led all these parallel lives. So, and then started my work. And then in the COVID period of time, just that opened up the door to all of these lies in our world. So to imagine all of that coming to me at once, but also knowing that the energies are preparing people for that. And that is necessary right
Yes.
now for people just to wake up and to kind of snap your fingers and just go. And here you are just going, which is so great because getting other, and it's not our job to wake people up. Like my podcast, I've been doing it for a while, which is talking about the Great Awakening. Yet I know it's not my job to do that, but to be present and to hold space and just to have love throughout it. Okay, so knowing that this is newer for you, but it's not new for any of us. It's just it's old. Not even to say it's old. Okay, not to say it's old. How would you phrase that?
I would say that it's remembered information that
Yes.
feels like it was hidden in a time capsule and you opened it up,
Yep.
but you were the one who wrote it. Like it
Yeah.
was a feeling of, oh yeah, that thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially when it's natural, right? So when it's your natural abilities and you're not chasing or forcing them, it feels like, ah, that's where I left those glasses. They were on the top of my head the whole damn time.
I
That's
love
what
that
I feel like,
analogy.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's the hard part about your natural gifts, which we all have them, all our psychic abilities, the ability to be able
Mhm.
to heal in our unique ways. Those abilities are sometimes the hardest to accept because what is natural feels so obvious to you, but so wildly unobvious to everybody else that we can spend our whole lives thinking that our gifts are not good enough or worthy enough or valid enough because it makes sense to us because it's natural for us, but
Mhm.
it's what the world needs. And so I find that people have the hardest time accepting the simplicity of their unique abilities because we've been programmed to think that it needs to be more complex in order for it to be worthy.
Yes. Or also programmed to believe that, to be successful, you have to have, go to
Oh,
college and you have to like, all, and you have, if you're a doctor, you are programmed Western medicine is the trek versus you can do these things and live your own life and be authentic and be in the truth. And that's good enough. And not only is that good enough, that's so good.
amazing. And you
It's
get
so
to
good.
get paid to be who you are,
Yep.
helping people honestly and in integrity with your heart, something that deeply fulfills you and deeply serves them. That
Hmm.
is hard for people to decondition.
Yep.
Decondition.
Yes. Okay. I want to go into your relationship, but I have one question that we hadn't talked about. Okay. For those who are just listening audibly, I'm a small chested woman, and Victoria, I would from your pictures, I would looks like you are as well
Full house as a board girl.
as a board. Okay, and I love that because in this world that we're in of fake boobs and the Kardashians with fake butts, really embracing. And I recently have started, like, I had a bra that had more padding in it, and I've thrown that away. And really trying, and knowing that a while back in media that there was going to be this push to get rid of the big boobs. I saw that in one film, but then I haven't seen it anywhere else. I can you encourage women as we are also moving into this time of embracing the divine feminine. And to me, that is just embracing your truth, whatever that looks like, whatever that is. What encouragement would you give to women about their bodies?
Nothing needs to change for everything to change.
Beautiful.
The truth is, whatever you think you need to change in order to be whatever you think you need to be is unimpressive to the person that you think it's going to be impressive to, and it's not going to fulfill you. You ask any real man, person in society who is on their awakening journey, and they're going to tell you, do you, but don't worry, less filler is more, less Botox is more, less change is more. I want some cushion for the pushing, and if you don't got it because it's who you are, you don't need to change it. Like, any real man I've ever spoken to has been like, you don't like your expressions are great. You don't need. And if you choose, that's fine.
Right.
But how do you want to be?
So let
And
me ask you this. Have you always been okay with your physical body, with your chest? Or did you go through
I actually had
periods
no
of
issue with
time?
my chest because I looked great in a leotard, but I
That
had issues with my thighs. My
God.
my college teacher stopped me in the middle of class one day when we were going across the floor to do different dance moves. And he stopped me in front of all my classmates and just said, "Your legs are too fat." Just like that. He said,
Woo.
"Nobody will hire you
Oh,
with
shucks.
the size of your thighs." And I said,
Okay.
"This is literally how my body looks, Greg." And he goes, and I'm so happy to name drop because so many women that have went through this college education are now either so morbidly obese or so deeply harmed by the way that he has treated people. And so I'm happy to call evil what it is in this context because I don't feel like it's out of integrity. He led me from that moment saying, people won't hire you because your upper body and your bottom legs are not proportionate. He led me to have a very significant eating disorder through my college years
Oh,
because it's the
man.
same thing. Horde binge, right? It's the same, it was the same energy as all the Adderall, no Adderall. All the
Yeah.
approval from people, no approval. Like, it was the same binge starvation energy I was in. Few weeks after he said that to me, he stopped me again in class and said, "You still haven't lost any weight." And I looked at him, I said, "I'm not going to starve myself, Greg." And the worst part is, nobody in my class said a single word. Nobody stood up. Nobody said, "Hey, have you ever thought about not?" No, everyone was just like, and that led me to a horrible eating disorder. I looked great and I was
Ooh.
working out, skipping class, 45 minutes of cardio minimum a day, hardly eating, counting my lettuce, like you name it, I was doing it. And I now see a lot of women that I went to school with having those very issues. And so, actually, now, two things I struggle with. First, my thighs. That is
You still
something that,
struggle with that?
yeah, just I would say growing up and becoming a woman when your body is not elastic anymore. It's like you could eat what you want and you bounce back thinner than a toothpick the next day. Like, things just change as your body is preparing for motherhood. And also on your awakening journey, the body changes as light enters.
Mhm.
As light enters, things change. And right now in the world and the energy that we are processing, we've never processed so much.
Yeah.
For, for some people, they're super hungry and then they're not hungry at all. They can't get enough water and then
Mhm.
they forget to drink water and then they overeat and then they don't want to eat for a few days. It's like our bodies are changing as light is acclimatizing. And so I do find my thighs are still a challenge for me. And I would say that being in musical theater for so many years and people needing to see my energy project from across the theater
Mhm.
to now having my own podcast and also being on podcasts, I struggle with how excessive my energy is when I don't even try. So I do not have an energy for film because I have a musical theater face. And anybody who does musical theater knows exactly what I mean. We project. And I just recorded a podcast last week and I looked at some of the clips and I was like, you're just going to need to accept, V, that like this is how your face is. It's like all the time. And it's not even intentional. Some people misunderstand it. They think I'm too much, I'm over dramatic. And I'm like, yeah, because I had 20 years of musical theater education. Like this is not performative anymore. This is literally just
It's
musical theater.
you.
Who I am, yes.
Yeah.
But from time to time, I struggle with feeling too much when I'm trying to channel the energy naturally through my heart and feeling how people respond to just being a musical theater kid with a lot of energy.
Mm. All right. Thank you for sharing that too. All right. I want to go into your relationship. And
Yeah.
like, this is what I've thought about too. I want to first talk about what my feelings are, knowing that as I go through this awakening, I come with an open heart, very flexible. Okay. And then to hear your story as well, if there's anything you disagree with or whatever, I'm really excited about that. All right. So I feel right now in this great awakening, there is what I would call, and it's talked about, a transgender agenda. And let me preface this. Okay. To me, love is love. Homosexuality, transgender, that's been in our society for centuries. So this isn't anything that's new. This isn't, this isn't coming from a racist standpoint or anything. I feel right now with the dark, let's call it the dark entities, that there is this push on children to, and I feel this also separates folks from God, from spirit, and confusion, to not know who you are.
Yes.
Okay, if this makes sense. Okay, so the books that have been put into schools and the drag queens and libraries and all that, and knowing that children, like their auras are not sexually developed until I think at least 7, like they can't even conceptualize sexuality. So this just being pushed, and then the Western medicine side of it, like once you go through these surgeries, you are going to be on these pharmaceuticals that cost like $1 million or more for the rest of your life. It's just it's okay. I don't know what it is. I can't put that into more words. So what do you, and hopefully I said everything. Okay, what do you feel about that first?
I agree with everything that you're sharing. And I do believe that there is a very sinister, very nefarious agenda that is intending to distort the field of what is natural and what is organic. And
Okay.
I do believe that in truth. And I do believe that there was a sinister agenda in the education system long before they started
Yeah.
to put in drag queens. Like
Oh yeah.
I think people on their awakening journey are going to homeschool their children at some point because the education system is extremely nefarious. It
Mhm.
is very flawed and it's not actually teaching people any life skills other than communication skills that they can ultimately learn in more productive, conducive environments. So part of this is the education system is already demonic, but now they're weaving in things that are continuing to create more and more distortion. And I do believe that there is an agenda behind that.
Okay. And also, I think we talked about this too, the victimhood and the division again, that I cannot be okay unless you call me these pronouns, unless you recognize this. And then I wanted to bring this up because this is in terms of flags on people's homes, like basically you're announcing who you like to have sex with. Okay. And all of this to me is you do you, yet this is private. This is your own. I mean, it's not, I'm going to put something out in the front of my house that tells everybody who I'm attracted to sexually. I mean, it is when you put it in those sort of terms, it is crazy. Okay, knowing that families and kids and I mean, no one needs to know
Well, now
your
everybody
personal
knows
life.
that they're, a traumatized liberal. And that's really what that is. It's like they're just showing us that they're politically overconsumed by their identity and
Yes.
and the need to have a constant villain in their reality because they
Yes.
are constantly victimized by their lack of integration. And so while I respect the advocacy and the conversations that are needing to be had,
Mhm.
that's not the way to start to have the kind of conversations with real people who are experiencing embodied integrated transitions and people who are embodied integrated queers. And there's a lot of us, but they are unfortunately a needle in a haystack to find
Yeah.
those that are actually not so polarized and not so traumatized that you can't get into any sort of rich dynamic before it becomes a trigger.
Okay, so talk about your relationship.
So I got off the cruise ship, started my real spiritual awakening, started my business, pulling tarot, doing a little bit of energy healing. And at the end of my cruise ship contract, I felt so free. Sometimes I think about what my life would be like if I don't know, if I kind of stayed in that place because I was just blissfully polyamorous. Let's call it that. I was not in a relationship with anybody, but I explored my sexuality for the first
Okay.
time in my life. I was in different kind of fun, playful relationships with other people. Most notably, I got pretty drunk in Jamaica one day, and there was this hot, really hot girl. And apparently I told her that I thought she was hot, but I forgot that I called her hot.
Okay.
And she got my number probably from me, I would assume. And she messaged me and was like, "Did you mean what you said when you like called me sexy or hot or whatever?" And now that I'm sober, I'm thinking to myself, well, yeah, I kind of do think she's hot, but like, am I going to actually admit that I think she's hot or
Okay,
not?
can I ask you this question? Had you explored your sexuality from this point, or has it had it always been towards men?
It had always been romantically with men, but I
Okay.
had like wanted to explore a girl in college. We hung out and I was like, no. I'd make out with girls at parties, but it was for the guys. If
Yeah.
I look back, I have always loved the spirit of somebody,
Hmm.
but I only ever experienced romantic and intimate relationships with men.
Okay. All right.
So this woman and I have all these other guys that I've been like kind of flirting with. We kind of have these like back and forth banters. And I tell her that I do kind of think you're sexy. And so we go to these crew parties, okay? And now crew parties are a good time, all right?
Okay.
And she's there, and so are all my boy toys. But don't worry, all my boy toys have girl toys and everybody it's a cruise ship life. You got to understand it. Everybody's married, but nobody's married, okay? And if you are married, you're lying to everybody and saying that you're
I've heard about that with cruises.
yeah.
It's just, yeah, it's, yeah.
It's a good time if you're running away from yourself.
Okay.
And so at the time I still kind of was, but I was like also I was on my awakening and I was connecting. I felt like I was connected to people for the first time in my
Okay.
life. And so anyways, this girl's there. And I've been drinking and we start talking and kind of flirting and I got my arm around her and I'm like, am I the mask in this relationship? I'm kind of giving like the masculine woman. Like I kind of like had my arm, I was like leading her a little bit. And so she takes me back to my cabin and kisses me. And this is the first time I've ever had an intimate, like conscious, intimate moment with a woman. And I remember I stood up and I looked at her and I opened the door and I was like, get out, just like that. And she was like, we don't have to go further. Like, it doesn't need to be. And I said, I don't know that I'm ready for this.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my first experience with a woman. We had kind of talked back and forth a little bit, trying to see where we wanted to go, but she was still healing from some things. And I was like, God, if this was like being with a woman, like I'd rather a man who says nothing than a woman who says everything. Like, this is not it for me. So anyways, I get off the ship and I've had my curious experience with a woman and I was like, damn, that's too much. But then one day my sister sends me this woman's TikTok.
Okay, so this is your sister that had the accident?
Yes.
Okay.
And she was like, listen, I know you told me you like made out with a girl kind of like, in Jamaica, da da da. She goes, but this girl's from our hometown
Whoa.
and she's blowing up on social media right now. And I feel like if you were ever with a girl, it would be this guy.
No way. Okay, and this is the person that you're with.
Yeah, it's my soon to be husband now. And
Okay.
I look at this video, this thirst trap video of this hot lesbian getting hundreds of messages from women being like, if you were a blah blah, like all these like sexy things, trying to flirt with her. And she's got this super thirsty video. And so after TikTok, because I didn't have TikTok at the time, I found her on Instagram and I followed her. Not knowing, like, I don't know how to flirt with a woman. I don't know if I'm actually attracted to her. I just think she's beautiful. But this was my first time kind of being like immersed in a lesbian world. And lesbians are hot. I didn't know that they were hot because at this time I only thought men were hot, but like sexy masked lesbians. Wow. I was like, oh, what is going on inside of me? Like, I've never had this experience before because it wasn't primal, but it's like, if you're listening to this, you know what I mean. Masked lesbians are very sexy. They know what to do in ways that you just, so, anyways. I look at their profile, and Hayden's name previously was Rachel. And Hayden, there's no such thing as like a dead name. Now I'm dead. No, he doesn't care. Like he was Rachel. He's a biological woman, and his name was Rachel. And underneath his bio said something like, his sun is in Pisces, his moon is in Aries, and his rising is in uh, Leo. And it was a little bit of his birth chart.
Hmm.
And so I reached out to him on Instagram asking about his birth chart. And I said, hey, like, I think, we grew up in the same area or whatever. And I was like, also, you've got, a water sign. So you had a Pisces water sign, but then you've got all this fire in your birth chart. Like, how do you balance that? So I was like, not even trying to slide into his DMs because I didn't even know what flirting with a woman looked like. But he answered. And we started kind of talking back and forth. And it was not flirtatious. Apparently, Hayden would tell me he thought I was straight because I was giving straight energy. Okay. I was not wearing flannels and backwards hats. Like I was clearly straight. And I thought I was straight, but like curious.
Yeah.
I had explored it. And so one day, Rachel asked me if I wanted to hang out because they were coming into Toronto for a photo shoot at the time I was living there. We had never met or talked a few times. I was like, this person gets hundreds of messages every single
Yeah.
day from sexy lesbians. And why am I, straight girl, getting a text back and then a hangout question mark? So I said, yeah, sure.
Okay.
And I think this is a date. This is a date with a masked lesbian. Like, what am I supposed to do? I've never had a date with a woman before. I think this is a date. Does she think it's a date? I don't know. I don't know. So now I'm like freaking out, shaving every single part of my body, like
Okay, for so some of you guys, here we go. Let's just go for it.
it's
And,
true.
and did I? So was Hayden still Rachel or
Yeah.
moving into Hayden?
Yeah. Hayden hadn't, there was no transition. He was a girl. Girl. His name was Rachel.
Okay.
That was that. There
Okay.
was
Got it.
no even conversation about transitioning
Okay. Got it.
at all. Actually, Rachel would say that she would get really triggered when people would call her a man. People would always call her a man, and she'd be like, why are you calling me a man? I'm clearly a woman. Like, I don't understand. Like, there
Okay.
was no awakening whatsoever from Rachel at the time that we met.
Okay. All right. So y'all met,
Yep. Had a first date.
was good.
It was great. I
Okay.
was like, wow, I feel things. And so then we hung out again.
Okay.
And this time we like snuggled and kind of just built a relationship. And that was the first time I had ever had like an intimate date and kiss with a woman instead of being drunk and then trying to backpedal and being like, do I actually want this?
Well, it sounds like having an intimate relationship with a person.
for who I was.
For who
Probably the
you,
first
okay.
relationship I had had where I was actually being seen for who I was.
Okay.
Because women to women relationships, for anybody who has explored that here, you just see each other differently in the same way that I would assume it would be from like, a man and a man. It's like the problems that you have in relationships or the things or concerns you have, they don't really exist because you kind of get each other. So I think that's why it's like fine line between like friends and intimacy because you just see each other differently.
Hmm.
And so then Rachel went to west coast of Canada to hang out with some friends and travel and such. And I actually at the same time that Rachel was exploring and we were kind of now FaceTiming a little bit, flirting, question mark, like I don't really know. This was around the time that I felt called to move out to Vancouver, which is across the coast of Canada at the time.
Hmm.
And so we are what you would call a U-Haul lesbian couple, apparently. This is the first time I'd ever heard of this. What this means is you meet once and then move in together. Now,
Okay.
mind you, I've never been in the lesbian culture, so I had no idea what that meant, but everyone was laughing and was like, you guys are U-Hauls. Like, this is what that means. It means that two women meet each other and basically move in instantly.
Okay.
And so I drove across the coast of Canada, picked up Rachel. I moved into my new place. Rachel was kind of just staying with me, and we fell in love.
Okay. All right. So when did Rachel, and tell me if I'm saying this correctly, discover that
Yeah.
you wanted to transition or be more seen as a male? All right. When did that happen?
So about a year into our relationship, Hayden, what Rachel had a like Reiki attunement
Hmm.
because she wanted to explore a little bit of her spirituality. I told her that we would never stay together if she didn't start meditating.
Got it.
So she started meditating and then naturally was called to kind of energy healing. And really, Reiki's like a gateway drug for
It
energy healing.
Okay, and so let me ask, so when you connected, already talking about, moon risings and tarot or astrology information, yeah, was that kind of the max where Rachel was at that point? Okay, so in meeting you, suddenly, hey, we got to do a whole bunch more. Got it.
On our first date, I pulled tarot cards for her and she didn't know what they were.
On the gentleman that I'm seeing, birth charts, and suddenly like, here we go, has never meditated before, meditates, and yeah, so I get you. I feel you.
You want to be my lover, you got to understand
This is it.
tarot, meditation,
Yep.
and
Come
demons.
into my world.
So that's exactly what happened. And so a year into our relationship, Rachel got a Reiki certification, and the Reiki facilitator said, I can see this image of you kind of wiping yourself clean on a mirror and seeing your true self. I'm not quite sure what that means.
Wow.
And around that time, I had been really frustrated with Rachel because I could feel like she was still really conforming to what people thought she should be. She was
Mhm.
still giving a lot of her power to social media and like how people perceived her. She was kind of stuck in a rut of like, who do I want to be? Like she had a kind of like a human job before, grew up in a small town like I did, and was still kind of in that small town mindset, but wanted to break free. And I had this message that came through of like, Rachel's going to do a 360. And that's all that I got.
Whoa.
And then it was so natural how things started to shift. But one day, Rachel and I are sitting at our apartment, and she showed me like a video of a trans person and was like, what do you think about that? And I was like, what do you mean what I think about that? It's a trans person. I don't know. I've never been exposed to trans people. We had one trans person in my high school and everybody made fun of them. Like this is how we grew up. It wasn't something that was normally talked about in where I grew up. And she was like, okay. And then she had very long, long, long hair. And one day felt called to cut it short. And I was like, okay, well, lesbians do that all the time. Like, who cares? But then when she cut her hair and had finished her Reiki certification, I think that something clicked because I think she saw herself a little bit more.
Hmm.
And hair had been really associated with trauma for her. So I think when she cut her hair, it opened things up for her. And
Yeah, and
then
hair is really important in spirituality. I mean, yeah. All right.
totally. And for her, a lot of it was connected to how her mother, wanted her to look feminine and keep her hair down all the time, but she wanted to wear men's clothes when she was a young age and like keep her hair up at the top of her head. Like she felt kind of like this was conforming to what her parents wanted of
Mhm.
her or her mother wanted of her to make her feel more feminine, even though she
Okay.
was not. She came out as lesbian in college. She finally was able to explore herself. So she was gay for a while. and dressed more masculine. And I think that when she cut her hair off, it opened something up for her. And then one day she sat me down and was like, I actually think I'm trans, just like that. And I was like, okay, okay, cool, great, fantastic. Love,
Good for you.
good talk. Like, I don't know what you want me to do with that information. And so slowly we started to explore a little bit about, okay, well, what would those steps look like? Like, would
Yeah.
you go on T? Would you not? It's like she's like, I don't really care. Like,
So T testosterone.
yeah,
Okay.
testosterone. Okay, well that's okay. Would you want to? Yeah, I think I would. Okay. So we started to look into that. It was very natural. And then, we were picking out her name, like what she wanted. She didn't want the name of any guy she used to have sex with when she was younger.
Yeah.
And didn't want the name to be associated with anybody that she knew or didn't have a good relationship with. And so we decided on Hayden. And then um, we were trying to figure out like a last name that or a middle name that suited them. And slowly but surely, it was like I could start to see that 360 happen, but also that piece that I knew that if something didn't come to form, I knew that it wouldn't have been the right union for us moving forward. I could feel it because I was growing a lot spiritually. It felt like they were trying to figure themselves out, and the evolution was not, it was starting to kind of fall out.
Hmm.
And I knew that it wouldn't really survive much longer if there wasn't some sort of breakthrough for Rachel. And
Okay.
obviously, this is the definition of the largest breakthrough. And so actually yesterday was Hayden's 4 years on testosterone. So he's been on testosterone ever since.
Okay. And in our conversation before about surgery and I think wanting to keep periods. Yeah. Can you go into more information, especially assuming that Hayden is also awakened like you are? Yeah. And I'm just curious the process now, knowing everything. Okay. Can you go into that a little bit?
So then we started to explore more on the past life understanding of why
Yeah.
he would transition. And what we were able to find was that in the majority of his lives, he was actually male.
Mhm.
And in majority of his lives, he died at 25.
Whoa. Interesting.
And Hayden has had 7 concussions, survived them all somehow
Okay. In this life.
in this life,
Jeez.
and found out
Okay.
he was trans at 25 years old.
Okay.
So in some ways, he did die. He transitioned at 25 and died, and then
Okay.
became who he came here to be. But his soul embodies more of a masculine presence. And if you ask him, he would say he needed to come in a woman's experience to be able to understand polarity from a perspective that nobody else could. So for him to be a biological woman and to still be a biological woman, he gets to understand in his system how polarity is, how masculine and feminine energetics are.
Oh, I just got chills in it. And thank you so much for Hayden for letting us talk about you
Yeah, he's
and
going to be
knowing.
on my
Okay.
podcast, and we'll be debating a little bit deeper about this if anybody is called to watch it. So Hayden's
Nice.
one of my guests on the podcast. We're actually going into this a little bit
Into
deeper.
this a little bit. And knowing that this great awakening is also about balancing this feminine and masculine. And he is getting to experience in such a deep, personal way.
That's exactly how he explains it, actually. He says that if we weren't going through the awakening that we were, maybe there would be no need for him to transition. He's not attached to his transition in a way that a lot of people are.
Yeah, that's so neat too.
If you mispronoun him, doesn't care. If you aren't willing to accept who he is, he doesn't care. If you think that his choices about being on testosterone, about not getting certain surgeries, about getting certain surgeries, if that bothers you, he doesn't care because his identity is not threatened by your
Right.
misunderstanding or your unwillingness to understand.
Or
However,
even your
yeah,
differences. I mean, it's because all of this is
exactly.
like you can be free to be you. There's no one telling you unless or not to take anything personally, not to just be yourself. And yeah,
The
yeah,
irony is, I find that any single person who has ever challenged Hayden ends up agreeing with him. Because once you sit down and
yeah.
understand past lives, you understand embodiment, you understand evolution, you understand. soul contract, you get it. If you're so attached to this physical realm and being like, you're a
Right.
biological woman, you're always going to be a biological woman, he's going to be like, I know. What's your argument? Well, you're changing your body. It's like, you're an alcoholic. Sit down, Susan. Like, what
Sit
do you
down,
mean?
Susan.
It's like look in the mirror, take the log out of your own eye before you're like, you use testosterone that changes your blah blah blah. I'm like, you use fluoride toothpaste and like use aluminum deodorant. Like sit down. Like everything is toxic in this reality from the air we breathe to the things we consume. So why is testosterone worse? Well, you're cutting off your breasts. It's like you literally got a tattoo when you were drunk in Mexico that has a giant cat on it on your ass. Like, what makes his situation bigger? And it's like, well, now we're having a conversation about a big agenda. And people start to go, well, there's an agenda on the children. It's like, well, be a better parent. Well, oh, well, I have to because I have. You're a victim. It's like the
Yep.
conversation ends up becoming, well, be a better parent than if you don't want your child to be exposed to that
Exactly. Then homeschool them.
and well, I can't because I work these jobs. Well, you're not free. It's like you're caught in the matrix. It's like
That's
the
beautiful.
conversation ends up being that we end up either disagreeing because you're caught in the matrix, or you're free, so you either agree to disagree, or you find that you actually end up agreeing with his perspective because it's just
Right.
evolution and choice that we all have.
Nice. Okay. I think that is a perfect ending to go into the Just Be practice. Okay. Let me conclude with this, Victoria, too. All of this in this world, in this awakening, is about love. It's about accepting yourself, and the ability within that is to accept others. It's just, and within that, so easy not to get bogged down in all this crap and all this. Yeah. So I appreciate you discussing that point blank, and thank you, Hayden, for also letting being cool with bringing that to the surface as well. Okay, Victoria, what would you? We haven't even talked about the Great Merge. We haven't even talked about galactics. But yeah, what would you bring to us today?
I feel like there's been so much that's been interwoven in the conversation about meditation, how meditation has been a pillar in my life. And so I'd like to take us even just through a quick 5 minute simple meditation where we can
Beautiful.
just reflect on what today meant and what we want to bring with us moving forward.
Sounds great. All right, kick it off.
Fantastic. So wherever you are, unless you're driving, I just encourage you to find a comfortable position. And I won't take too much of your time, I promise. But if you think you don't have 5 minutes, then you should probably listen to this on replay. And so whenever you are ready, you can gently close your eyes.
Just be practice.
This is my absolute favorite part of meditation. And if you ask me why, I would tell you because it's the beginning. But if you asked me a little bit deeper, I would tell you it's because everything that was met everything and nothing simultaneously. And I love that feeling. I love that feeling when doing meets being. And isn't that what this entire podcast is about? Just being. I encourage you now to catch your breath. And without manicuring it, as we've talked about today, or making it something that you think it needs to be, I just encourage you to follow it in a natural way. And if your mind wanders, it's okay. Just like we talked about on today's podcast, it doesn't matter that you get lost or you're addicted to your thoughts. All that matters is you come back. So come back. On every exhale, you just find yourself meeting the comfort of the ground and the surface, the chair, wherever you find yourself seated. You just find yourself melting into that space on every exhale. Grounding deeper into this moment of is. Nothing needs to change for everything to change. One of my favorite questions to ask myself after anything, any moment, is this. And I encourage you and invite you into this. What is true for me right now? Maybe it was that this particular podcast had medicine for you. And if so, what are those truths of the medicine that came through? Maybe it's that you just feel a bit restless and you're not fully present. It's okay. What is truth for you right now? Just noticing what comes up, if anything at all. And if nothing, then just remember that nothing is a message too. What is truth for me right now? We're going to finalize this very brief meditation with a full deep breath in now. And a slow exhale out of the nose or out of the mouth, whatever feels good. As we pause between races and slowly come back to the now.
Hey there.
Hey there.
That was lovely. Hey, thank you so much for openly sharing your story and your truth. And again, this podcast is a place for vulnerability, for being able to share that, for being able to be yourself. At least I think that's what it's all about. Hey, your website is Victoria Pippo Inc.com, and it's Victoria, and Pippo is Pippo Inc.com. So I'll have it on the video and also below in the show notes. Hey, girl, thank you so much for being here, for sharing everything again. I so appreciate it. And I'll have you say goodbye in a second. So y'all just stay tuned every week. I just love who comes on the show, who I get to meet, what I get to talk about. It's again great for me. How was it for you, Victoria? Did you have fun?
I had a great time. And, you really cultivated a safe space to be able to have the kinds of
Oh,
conversations that allow us to go deeper than just a simple interview. And I really respect you for that. We took the
oh,
time to connect beforehand, and you actually asked certain questions that allowed this conversation to be compelling. And yes, of course, there were realizations that we had or new found discoveries, but you brought so much to this space that I feel like it allowed us to have a much richer conversation. So I want to say thank you for creating the safe space to be able to have this kind of conversation. And it just shows that you really value your listeners and their experience, because we didn't just spend this whole time getting to know each other. There was a lot of value and depth that you cultivated long before we started. So I want to say thank you to you for everything that you're doing. And I'm really grateful that we had our time together. And my highest hope is that we touched on a lot of different angles, but I hope that people found themselves in longing to belong and getting lost and growing up with shitty childhoods and maybe forgiving the bully, question mark, maybe forgiving the bully, you never know. But hopefully this was a conversation about forgiveness and resilience and knowing that you can change your life at any time with something as free and as simple as a meditative practice.
yeah, I think that's perfect. And thank you so much. I'm taking that in here and it feels so good. And knowing that the people that listen to this show, you have to be open minded when you come here and knowing what we're going through, that there are shifts and changes and pivots all the time. So there you go. All right. I will talk to you soon. See everybody later. Bye, Victoria.
Yeah.
Y'all, find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Truth Social, as well as Rumble, BitChute, YouTube, plus a plethora of other audio directories like Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So like, subscribe, do it all. See ya.